Hey, it's good to see you again. I have a question. Did you ever have a Greek mythology phase? Or were you really into the Percy Jackson series? I grew up with a comic book version of the Iliad and the Odyssey, and my family's really into ancient history. We love a good documentary. If any of that sounds appealing, or you like the Greek pantheon, then I think today's game is for you. This is Agon by Evil Hat Productions. Rather than using the historical Greek islands, Agon has created its own fictional set of islands for your players to visit and experience. I will say though that the islands are really tied up to the content of the game and are sort of more pre-written adventures where there is a story to complete on each island. So I won't really actually be covering much of the setting today. It feels like I would be giving away the content of these adventures, so I won't say any more. This is a dice pooling game, which means slightly crunchy mechanics. Generally speaking, every single dice roll the players make will be a contest with the game master, who is called the strife player. These contests will resolve, and depending on the outcome, generally the player and the strife player's two highest dice, plus any bonuses, will give you the result of the contest. In a situation where the strife player will not roll to contest a player's roll, the action just happens. The dice used in this game are D4s, D6, D8s, D10s, and D12s. They recommend a variety of a couple of each, and of course for the strife player to have a large pool to gather from. Building a character in this game really leans into the literary tropes you find in the Iliad and the Odyssey. Before anything else, you start with a heroic epithet, something like swift-footed, keen-eyed, or strong-bladed. This describes your character and their most important heroic aspect. Then comes your character's name, their lineage, where they're from, who you are the scion of, and their divine favor, who on Olympus is backing your side. Then you pick some descriptive phrases to sort of pin down your character and give them some evocative language to draw from. Then you choose what domains your character is proficient in. Generally, this means you'll roll a higher number die, so you'll have higher numbers to roll with. They provide a really good example of this on an example character sheet, where you can see the domains are arts and oration, blood and valor, craft and reason, and resolve and spirit. There is a leadership role that is available in the party, but generally that actually changes from island to island as you visit based on what your players roll in an initial contest. This will determine who really gets to lead the party. I think it's really neat that everyone gets a bit of a turn at it. Players then create two bonds for their characters. Generally, this will be between themselves and the other players. It will depend, however, if your player is a mortal player or a demigod player. Bonds can be used for a variety of different things like bolstering a roll, blocking an attack, or convincing the party leader to go along with your plan. Characters also have something called pathos. Pathos is kind of that inner fire that drives them to keep going. It can help them with their rolls, absorb some damage, and help them endure the challenges that they face along the way. When you run out of pathos though, generally that means your character is heading towards their final end. I mentioned this game uses a dice pool. Generally, players will encounter I mentioned this game uses a dice pool. Generally, players will encounter a problem that is presented by the strife player. Players and the strife player then engage in a roll-off where they use their die to see who comes out on top. Generally, the strife player will announce when there is going to be a contest, and they will announce the opponent's name, their epithet, and then they will add any advantages. These aspects represent the die that they will use. For a monster, for example, it will probably have a higher die than a human component, say a d10 versus a d8. Your player's dice will work in a similar way. Generally speaking, a pool of dice is rolled, the two highest numbers are added together, and then any bonuses are applied on top of that afterwards. It does sound really confusing, and knowing when you're going to be adding any bonuses is generally explained by when a situation might call upon one of your heroes' say, expertise. I will also say Evil Hat have included a diagram throughout and some ones for the Strife player to explain how the dice rolls work. So that makes explaining things and using the dice a lot easier. A rule I really like is that the players can't just roll again once they've failed a contest without providing some kind of justification. Maybe they've left and returned with new knowledge, or they're going to try a new strategy of attack. This game is actually pretty structured. For example, the conflicts that are found on the islands will generally be broken up into 3 stages. An initial conflict where both sides try jockey for best position, a enemy lashing out where the players can try to defend themselves or try to take advantage and turn the tide of battle. Then there is a final clash, which will basically decide the fate of this adventure and the island. It's possible to partially, if not fully, succeed on most of these though. This isn't the only part of the game that follows a structure, but I don't think it's restrictive at all. Rather, it's calling upon the conventions of epic Greek poetry in a way that I think is really flexible and gets you in the mindset of the game. As your players adventure, they might change, gain, or lose epithets. The main thing that will change for your players is that they will gain glory. Glory is important to these heroes because it will determine how they are remembered after their death. It might also mean they gain boons to their lineages or their kingdoms from the gods. I think this really helps you get into the mindset of the ancient Greeks and how important it was to glorify yourself for your memory. Something else that will change for the players is they might accidentally anger or gain the favor of different gods throughout, meaning that they might make some new enemies or new allies. Overall, I really like the rules of this game. The dice pulling does feel a little overwhelming initially, but it's all pretty well explained. And the idea of borrowing your rules to follow Greek poetry conventions, I think it's different and very exciting for me. This small book has a fair bit of content in it. There are 12 islands for your players to visit, and if you don't like any of those, there are directions on how to create your own islands, even just rolling from a table. There's also a really great lexicon of terms, and a really helpful index. There's also a great little passage about playing in this game sensitively and some of the cultural things that you might want some background on to play this game. I also have to mention the art. It's quite a bit different from what I usually expect from a role-playing game. It's much more stylized and evocative of Greek pottery art. I paid about $40 for this one from my local gaming store. I think I might have a bit of trouble getting a group together to play this one though. Not everyone is a deep appreciator of Greek mythology. But if your group is really into Greek mythology, or they were into it as a kid, I would definitely put this one on the table. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. I've had a bit of a cold recently, so I do sound a little bit different if you spotted that. If you like the videos or you have any feedback, I really encourage commenting, subscribing, liking. It helps motivate me to make more videos. and I hope to see you next time at the gaming table. Bye.